Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Namunatira Vanachari Namunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Kodanita Jaya Maya Bhotati Jaya Kodanita Maya Bhotati Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Shri Kodnachai Pushashi ki, Shri Tulsinath Maharaj ki, Shri Giriraj Lal ki, Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagwan ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Ranchad Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, the final lesson. Srila Prabhupada had already expressed his surrender in the prayer he had given his disciples to offer on his behalf. My dear Lord Krishna, if you desire, please cure Srila Prabhupada. By the phrase, if you desire, he was reminding his followers of the supreme prerogative of Krishna and was asking them to abide by it, although he was also giving them an acceptable way to petition Krishna. In a similar case in 1967, he had given his disciples another prayer. My master has not yet finished his work. He had said then that Krishna had responded to this prayer, granting the wishes of the devotees. Srila Prabhupada himself was responding to the devotees' prayers, and Krishna had given him the choice. But as a surrendered soul, Srila Prabhupada waited for further developments, ever sensitive to Krishna's desire. As Prabhupada had said when invited by Kirtanananda to come to his palace in New Vrindavan, As Prabhupada had said when invited by Kirtananda to come to his palace in New Vrindavan, let us see which palace I am going to. As a loving tension can sometimes exist between the Supreme Lord and his pure devotee, so now a similar tension existed between Srila Prabhupada and his followers. Prior to his disciples' desperate petition at his bedside, Srila Prabhupada had seen his duty as instructing his disciples in how to die. Part of his mission was to set the perfect example in this most important lesson, how to pass life's ultimate test. But now his disciples were asking him to postpone the lesson in dying and to stay with them indefinitely in the preaching field. And Prabhupada had agreed, showing that he had the ability to live if he chose. But sooner or later he would have to return to the lesson on how a person should face the end of life. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai. Issues, please. Sorry, I should have. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 20, The Structure of the Universe. Text 24 onwards. I'll read the translations starting from text 24. Outside the ocean of milk is another island, Shakadweep, which has a width of 3,200,000 yojanas, 25,600,000 miles. As Kronchadweep is surrounded by its own ocean of milk, Shakadweep is surrounded by an ocean of churned yogurt, as broad as the island itself. In Shakadweep there is a big shaka tree, from which the island takes its name. This tree is very fragrant. Indeed, it lends its scent to the entire island. Text 25. The master of this island, also one of the sons of Priyavrata, was known as Medatiti. He also divided his island into 7 sections, named according to the names of his own sons, whom he made the kings of that island. The names of those sons are Purujav, Manojava, Pavamana, Dhrum, Ranika, Chitrarepa, Bahurupa, and Vishvadara. After dividing the island and situating his sons as its rulers, Medatiti personally retired, and to fix his mind completely on the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he entered a forest suitable for meditation. Text 26. For these lands also there are 7 boundary mountains and 7 rivers. The mountains are Ishan, Urishringa, Balabhadra, Shakatesara, Sahasrarota, Devapal, and Mahanas. The rivers are Anaga, Ayurda, Ubhyasprishti, Aparajita, Panchapadi, Sahasrasruti, and Nijadriti. Text 27. The inhabitants of those islands are also divided into 4 castes, Ritavrata, Satyavrata, Danavrata, and Anuvrata, which exactly resemble Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. They practice pranayama and mystic yoga, and in trance they worship the Supreme Lord in the form of Vayu. Text 28. Anta Pravishya Bhutani Anta Pravishya Bhutani Yo Bibhavarti Atma Ketubi Yo Bibhati Atma Ketubi Antaryamishvara Sakshat Antaryamishvara Sakshat Patu No Yad Vashe Sputam Patu no Yad Vashe Sputam Anta Pravishya Bhutani Yobibhati Atmaketubi Antaryamishvara Sakshat Patu no Yad Vashe Sputam Anta Pravishya Bhutani Yobibhati Atmaketubi Antaryamishvara Sakshat Patu no Yad Vashe Sputam Anta Pravishya Bhutani Yobibhati Atmaketubi Antaryamishvara Sakshat Patu no Yad Vashe Sputam Vaishnavis. Antabhavishya, entering within, Bhutani, all living entities, Ya, who, Bibharti, maintains, Atmaketabi, by the functions of the inner airs, prana, apana, etc. Antaryami, the supersoul within, Ishvara, the Supreme Person, Sakshat, directly, Patu, please maintain, Na, us, Yatvashe, under whose control, Sputam, the cosmic manifestation. Translation. The inhabitants of Shakadweep worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Vayu in the following words. O Supreme Person, situated as the Supersoul within the body, you direct the various actions of the different airs, such as prana, and thus you maintain all living entities. O Lord, O Supersoul of everyone, O Controller of the cosmic manifestation, under whom everything exists, may you protect us from all dangers. Please repeat. Inhabitants of Shakadweep worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Vayu in the following words. O Supreme Person, situated as the Supersoul within the body, you direct the various actions of the different airs, such as prana, and thus you maintain all living entities. O Lord, O Supersoul of everyone, O Controller of the cosmic manifestation, under whom everything exists, may you protect us from all dangers. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Through the mystic yoga practice called pranayama, the yogi controls the airs within the body to maintain the body in a healthy condition. In this way, the yogi comes to the point of trance and tries to see the supersoul within the core of the heart. Pranayama is the means to attain samadhi, trance, in order to fully absorb oneself in seeing the Supreme Lord as Antaryami, the Supersoul within the core of the heart. Namagyanatamrandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshurumanitam jena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupagadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakan Vitam Shah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Taptakanchani Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So it's interesting, in the previous verse, Srila Prabhupada says that the inhabitants of these islands worship the Supreme Lord in the form of Vayu. And in this verse also, Srila Prabhupada is saying, O Supreme Person, O Super Soul of everything, O Controller of the cosmic manifestation, may you protect us from all dangers. So these are sons of Maharaj Priyavrata. So Maharaj Priyavrata is a very exalted devotee of the Lord. He had, the Lord personally instructed him to accept the Grihastha ashram and to act as the perfect king. And we see in his pastime that he was a pure devotee. So certainly his glories would be known to his sons. So we shouldn't consider that these personalities are demigod worshippers. Just as we read in the Bhagavad Gita that the Lord's vibhuti manifestations, that in the opulence of the Absolute, so there the Lord is described, as the Himalayas and as many different manifestations. So one who is a pure devotee is able to worship the Lord in this form without contamination of a fruitive mentality. However, as we understand, Krishna, in his pastime of lifting Govardhan hill, then Krishna was kind of expressing that, that over time there's a danger that worshipping Krishna in different manifestations, and like the knowledge of Krishna as the original person can be lost. And that's definitely the case in Kali Yuga. Very quickly, like Vaishnav practices can become rituals if there's no pure devotee to direct the particular community of devotees, and very quickly it can become contaminated by jnana and karma. But here we're reading about personalities who, as I say, were very exalted and understood, and had the association of exalted devotees. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is not, although sometimes it may appear to be talking about different demigods, we should always examine who are the personalities, what's the context. And then also we should think that, well, how fortunate we are that, even though they're such great exalted personalities, they didn't have the association of so many pure devotees as we do now. And not only pure devotees, but eternal associates of the Lord who've come to participate in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. So that even such a lecturer as me can sit here and talk about this. So that's how amazingly fortunate we are. So also here it's described that the Lord is the master of the air, the super soul within, who directs the various actions of the different airs. So ultimately, the knowledge of pranayama and the knowledge of how those different airs are moving within the body, that knowledge is intended to enable the practitioner of Ashtanga Yoga to control the airs in such a way that he can perceive the super soul within the heart, and so that even when he's not sitting in meditation, then he's practiced Ashtanga Yoga in such a way that he can understand the direction of the super soul in all of his activities. However, we see that the yogis some of the yogis became very attached to their practice of mystic yoga, and therefore they didn't want to be in a situation in which their life airs may be disrupted by the influence of other people's life airs. So we sometimes experience, even though we're not mystic yogis, but we often talk that, that we become disturbed just by the atmosphere of persons who are very materialistic. And we're warned about going into that association. So Srila Prabhupada indicated that the yogis, they were so concerned about this that they would go to meditate in the Himalayas and in very secluded places where their life airs wouldn't be disturbed in that way. Whereas Prahlad Maharaj, praise to Lord, says to Lord Nrsingadev that he's not going to go to the Himalayas to meditate in that way. He's going to stay in the cities and the towns to teach the process of devotional service to those unfortunate persons who are devoid of transcendental knowledge. So similarly, Srila Prabhupada said that wonderful example of leaving Vrindavan which was certainly a place of pure devotional service, and where many saintly persons were living, and where the whole atmosphere is charged with pure devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada left Vrindavan, and following the example of Prahlad Maharaj, came to a place where one's life airs are in extreme danger of being constantly disturbed. And also that means that our practice of mantra meditation is also not so simple as it would be if we were in a secluded place or in a holy place. It's not. Like some of us, like myself, are very fortunate that we don't have to go outside of this holy dham, Karuna Bhavan dham. We don't have to go out and experience that like extreme disruption. But many devotees, including pure devotees and spiritual masters, travel throughout the world and are in situations in which their life definitely will be disturbed. However, we have here a description of the supersoul within, and the advantage that we as devotees coming in this line of pure devotional service from Lord Chaitanya is that we can understand that the supersoul is Krishna. And it's very interesting. I was looking on Vedabase, and so although the word Paramatma comes up quite often in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vedic literature, but this word Antaryami very rarely is seen. It's not in the Bhagavad Gita, and it's only 3 times in the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's interesting, those 3 times are all in the 5th canto. And Srila Prabhupada sometimes translates the Antaryami as the indwelling supersoul, or the indwelling soul, one who dwells within. And the Sanskrit actually means I enter within. I enter within. So in this way we can, and many of our prayers, especially in the prayers to help us chant the holy name, they're asking Krishna to come within our heart and transform our heart into a place where we can perform devotional service in the form of hearing and chanting. So it's interesting that in the 5th canto, which is often thought of as being kind of the least accessible canto, but here we have right in the middle of this chapter called The Structure of the Universe, then we have this meditation on Krishna as the Antaryami, the indwelling soul. So it's also although the word Antaryami is not in the Bhagavad Gita, but the word Sri Bhagavan Vacha is in the Bhagavad Gita, and means Krishna speaking personally to us. So whenever Krishna says, I am in your heart as the supersoul, then this is Krishna personally telling Arjuna, I am in your heart. And Krishna and Arjuna is one of his eternal associates. So Krishna is reminding us that he is personally in our heart. However, we won't be able to perceive that unless we are constantly asking Krishna to be within the heart, to enter within the heart in such a way that we can perceive that or have faith that Krishna is there. And in chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 7, Krishna says to Arjuna, Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita sitoshna sukadukeshu tata manapamanayo. For one who has conquered the mind, the supersoul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. And put by Srila Prabhupada. Actually, every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. And then later in the same purport, Srila Prabhupada says, when one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. So Srila Prabhupada didn't teach us Ashtanga Yoga, although it is a bona fide process for attaining this fixing the mind on the superior nature. It is a bona fide process. But Srila Prabhupada understood that in Kali Yuga, and especially in the non-Vedic world, in the Western world, it's not the Western world now, but the Western civilization, especially in that environment, then the process of Ashtanga Yoga had become so polluted that not only was it ineffective, but it was also dangerous in the sense that it could attract people towards impersonalism and attract them into the association of persons who were inimical to devotional service. But in Vrindavan and in many holy places in India where worship of Krishna and worship of Vishnu are prominent, then the yogis who don't, in our mind, when we see such yogis, we may think, oh, maybe they're impersonalists. But actually, some of those yogis are great devotees of Radha and Krishna. And they actually, Radha and Krishna are their Ishtadevs, their worshipful deities. And they've actually attained to they've used the process of Ashtanga Yoga to empower them in being able to surrender completely to the instruction of their spiritual master. And the process of initiation, in one sense, prepares us for that surrender to the spiritual master, because the spiritual master is the direct representative of the Supersoul. And the spiritual master, it's his duty to guide the disciple in such a way that the disciple is able to surrender to the direction of the Supersoul, either through the words of the spiritual master, or with the guidance of the spiritual master, training the disciple to actually be able to act according to the inner workings of the Supersoul in the heart. So there's also sometimes, Srila Prabhupada describes in chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, Tesham eva nakampatam aham bhajami jam tamaha nashayam yami bhavaston jnana dipena vashvatam. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts. So again, that it's very dwelling in their hearts, in the indwelling Supersoul. And it's very, there's no doubt in this verse that this is Krishna talking about, I am dwelling in their hearts, because this is the Chaturshloki of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in the previous verse, Krishna says, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, priti, which is like pure devotional service. So, and in the purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada says that even if a devotee does not take advantage of the literatures of the learned scholars or of his spiritual master, if he is sincere in his devotional service, he is helped by Krishna himself within the heart. So the sincere devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness cannot be without knowledge. The only qualification is that one carry out devotional service in full Krishna consciousness. So, we sing in the prayers by Srila Vishnunath Chakravarti Thakur, Sakshad Dharitvena Samasta Shastra. In all the Shastras, it is declared that the spiritual master is identical with the Supreme Lord. So he's identical in the sense that he performs the same intimate occupation of directing the living being towards surrendering to Krishna as Krishna does in the form of the super soul. So in that sense, it's the same. And because Krishna is always present as the super soul, and as long as the living being is in the material world, then the living being always has access to Krishna in that form. But Krishna also desires that the living entities surrender to the spiritual master. And this is the system that Krishna wants us to follow. So although in one sense we can obtain everything from the super soul, but because Krishna is personal, Krishna is a supreme person, so when he establishes a system, it doesn't mean that that system is devoid of personality. And this is like a very Western impersonal conception that, that a particular system or a particular management system or a particular administrative system may have been established hundreds of years ago by some person, and that person may have been a very caring, loving king or governor or even a spiritual teacher, but that now that system, that institution is no longer connected to that person, and that in some way the institution has just become an institution with all of the negative connotations that institutions have. And it may have even been taken over by a very people who have got another agenda. But that's not the case. When Krishna establishes a system, then he's always maintaining it as the super soul. But he's established the system for a reason, that we don't necessarily have that ability to show the level of respect to Krishna as the super soul that it's actually appropriate. So therefore Krishna sends the spiritual master, the instructing spiritual masters, who are described as saintly persons who keep us on track, and the initiating spiritual master, who reminds us of the surrender that's required in our personal life and the dedication and keeping vows and practicing the rules and regulations. So these two kinds of spiritual master, who are both direct representatives of Krishna as the super soul, they enable us to stay in the correct mood, to be able to, throughout our lives, whether here or in wherever we take birth, and also in the spiritual world, to have the correct mood of approaching Krishna. And Krishna, Lord Chaitanya is also described as the super soul. So as I say, although the word antaryami, I entering into the heart, I dwelling in the heart, anta means within, and yarami means I go there. And just like we sing in prayers to Lord Nrsingadev, yato yato yami tato Nrsinho. So although the word antaryami is only in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3 times, it's actually in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's there more often. And actually the 3rd verse of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which describes the glories of Lord Chaitanya, it's there in the 3rd verse. And that's Yada Dvaitam Brahma Panashadi Tadapyasya Tanaba Ya Atma Antaryami Iti Purusho Suswangsa Vibhava. So this is what the Upanishads describe as the effulgence of his body. And he who is known as the super soul is his localized plenary portion. So that's a nice meditation on this, that Lord Chaitanya is the super soul. He's the antaryami. He's entered within the hearts of all, and specifically he dwells in the heart. He's entered the heart of all as the super soul, but he actually dwells in the heart of his pure devotee, in the sense that he's happy to take residence there. So Krishna is present as the supersoul in all living entities, in all atoms. But when the devotee learns how to worship Krishna, then Krishna actually dwells in the heart. So in this sense, we can have this nice meditation. Like there's so many prayers. Actually, there's a very nice mantra tika, which is like a commentary on the holy name, a commentary on the meanings of the holy name by, there's one by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami, and there's one by Gopal Guru Goswami. And those, the Sanskrit's very nice, and the English also. So the first one, it's Machitam Ritva Bhavabandhana Mochai. And this means, please steal my heart and deliver me from the bondage of material existence. Machitam Ritva. So like you could think, well, why does Krishna need to steal my heart? He already owns it anyway. But yeah, Krishna owns the heart, but that's a kind of tattva understanding. Whereas we're asking Krishna not just to own my heart, but to steal my heart. So this is we're asking Krishna to like dwell in the heart and take complete control of the heart. And then if that doesn't work, then in the third verse, Madhuri Swamaradyena Madchitam Hara, with your sweetness, please steal my heart. So generally our heart is stolen by the sweetness, where my heart is like stolen by the sweetness of like lots of gulab jamans, or or lots of besan burfi mixed with sesame honey oat sweet. So our heart is stolen by sweetness. It's stolen by sweet philosophical discussions, or sweet interactions between the pujaris and the deities, when we see that the pujaris on festival days make like a really special effort to address the deities in a very special, splendid way. So Srila Prabhupada has created the International Society for Krishna Consciousness in such a way that our minds will be attracted by all of the sweet interactions between Krishna and his devotees. So it's not sufficient just to meditate on this when we're chanting our japa, but we want to be able to meditate on this sweet interaction at all times throughout 24 hours a day. Actually, although our temple president sometimes doesn't look like he's in ecstasy, but actually he actually has the greatest opportunity to be in that meditation, because the whole property and all, not just the property, but all of the bank accounts and all of the legal affairs and legal documents, everything, they're all aspects of worshipping the deities. So every moment of his day and all of his probably his nightmares as well, are all he's been stolen by the sweetness of that service to the deities. And if we take close association of these devotees who've got this extremely intimate service of maintaining the deities' service, just like Mohini's come to work out a way in which we can color code the cleaning cloths so that they don't get mixed up with the cleaning cloths for the floor in the ashram or something like that. So that is also that's also meditation on the intimate service of the pujaris with the deities. Just like when Lord Chaitanya's disciples and associates came to Jagannath Puri every year, then Lord Chaitanya personally took charge of cleaning the Gundicha temple. And not only did he clean the temple, but he actually cleaned the living quarters of all of the pujaris as well. So that you know, that's how special that service is. And so when we're asking Krishna to come within our heart and capture us by his sweetness, it's not that we have to be like, you know, Haridas Thakur chanting 22 hours a day to be in that meditation. No, Srila Prabhupada is teaching us how to be in that meditation all the time. And that's why it's the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So I'll stop there. Are there any questions or comments?
Thank you for class. Nice class. Just on the Swami, which I thought was interesting, because I don't think when surgeons are doing heart surgery that they've ever gone across the courtyard in the heart. So we could say that the Vishnu aspect of Krishna is the super soul, which is awe and reverence. But by chanting the name purely, Shuddhanam, then we gain access into a part of the heart where Krishna is. There's a courtyard in the heart. Krishna's there, and he's waiting to dance with us. So when you're chanting Hare Krishna, you're being led into that courtyard, way beyond Paramatma, Vishnu, Vaikuntha, into a very intimate space. And then in the courtyard, there'll be other devotees dancing there as well. Prabhupada will be there, Lord Chaitanya, so many. So I thought that was a nice way to reflect on how Krishna is there. He's just waiting to see if you want to access the courtyard.
Yes. Actually, there's in the Mangalacharanam of Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's another nice expression there. Sada Hridaya Kandare Spurtava Sachinandana. May Lord Shri Krishna, the son of Sachidevi, be ever present in the innermost chambers of your heart. Is it Hridaya Kandare? And Kandare means caves or caverns.
First emotion is separation, so you suddenly realize there is an inner chamber. You didn't even know it was there before. A longing and a sense of belonging, because you can only long for something that you feel you belong in, you know. So by hearing and talking about it in class like this, it stimulates the longing to want to go into that innermost chamber.
Actually, although something in me like didn't feel happy there when you said about like we can go a long way past Lord Vishnu, because you know, Lord Vishnu is Krishna, or rather Lord Vishnu. Krishna manifests himself as Lord Vishnu to reciprocate with those devotees who are not like on the Madhurya or Vatsalya platform, who are more on the Dasya Ras platform. Or like I mean,
I was just thinking in terms of Vaikuntha's. Vaikuntha's a long way away from Javat.
All right, well, anyway, a lot of the devotees who are aspiring for Vaikuntha have a very like extreme like loving attachment for Krishna. And there's lots of very wonderful stories about those devotees, how they petition the Lord and how the Lord reciprocates them in wonderful ways. So because I've been reading about those recently a lot.
That was actually in Krishna Sangati. Radharani was with Krishna, she sees a yogi and she says, who's this? He says, Srimad, and he's been meditating for 50,000 years. So he wrote in his eyes, he didn't see Radha Krishna. He saw Lakshmi Narayan. Then his body melted and it became a river of pure love. And it flowed on Mount Rohita. And Radharani was saying, you're so wonderful, Krishna. How you do all these amazing things.
Any other questions? Laura?
Thank you for that class. It was really nice. I was just wondering about the verses that you spoke about, the sweetness. I just want to know where I find them. The verses that you spoke about.
They're in Veda Gita, aren't they? They're in, the English is in Veda Gita, Prabhupada. It's also in Satyananda Swami's The Living Name. It's in the Sanskrit and the English are in there. And it's the actual source. It's called Mantra Tika by Gopal Guru Goswami.
Online comment by Heyman and comment. Almost like my flaws grow as my love for Krishna grows.
Almost like his flowers grow.
No, flaws, defects, flaws grow as my love for Krishna grows. And as the love for Krishna grows, I feel tested.
Feel tested. Yeah, it's to avoid you giving yourself, to help you not give yourself too hard a time. As our love for Krishna grows, then because we're more in love is a very powerful driving force, which impels us to want to have association with that person all the time. So if we have that, by having association with Krishna due to the power of our love, then we become illumined more and more by Krishna's purity, and therefore we're able to see our faults. So it's not that the faults grow, but it's just that they become much more obvious, because especially if we see the flaws as being obstacles in our expression of our love with Krishna, then naturally those flaws are going to seem very big. So you shouldn't think that the process of Krishna consciousness, of increasing our love for Krishna, you shouldn't think that means that that your flaws are going to grow. That's not a correct understanding, but rather they appear to be much bigger, because just like the gopis, they're like complaining to Lord Brahma that he's created eyelids, because every minute you have to blink, and in that time they're not able to see Krishna in that blinking. So it's not that because of the gopis' love, their eyelids are blinking more than other people's eyelids. So it's not that the obstacles grow because of our devotional service. However, Krishna may sometimes put all of the obstacles together and give them to us in a big batch so that we can overcome them all at the same time. But he doesn't want to do that unless we've got close association with our spiritual masters, like whether a Diksha Guru or Shiksha Gurus, because that process is like a difficult process to overcome, and we really need the guidance of others. So we need help to distinguish what are real obstacles from what are like anarthas, which are coming up naturally in the process of devotional service. So we need to be in a sangha where we can ask these questions and have confirmation. So I don't know if Eamon is actually in any sanghas. Are any of the devotees here communicating with Eamon? So perhaps we can try and find a way to invite Eamon into some of our sanghas here. Grancha Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Shri Kodamitai Mayapur Shashi ki, it's I go to Premanandi. Ananta Kodi Vaishnavrinda.